Meeting of the Carrollton-Farmers Branch ISD Board of Trustees to order at 7 p.m. on September 2nd, 2021. Board members, district staff members, and members of the audience, you are free to join me in standing as Susan Rogers of the MetroCrest Ministries Fellowship provides a message, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, which I will lead us in tonight, and the pledge to the Texas flag, led by Cassandra Hatfield.
Will you please bow your head with me? Let us pray together, each of us according to our individual beliefs. We give thanks for the dedicated teachers, hardworking and caring, the devoted parents, impassioned and supportive, the determined administrators, encouraging and thoughtful, the diligent employees working face-to-face with the students, and those working behind the scenes, faithfully providing a safe, nurturing, enriching learning environment. We're thankful for this school board and for the greater CFB ISD community, earnestly and steadfastly championing the needs of our learning community. Most of all, we're grateful for our precious students, for their enthusiasm, their hard work, their resilience, and their contributions. Please bless them with all they need to rise above the challenges they face. We pray for those participating in this meeting tonight that they may be blessed with understanding, compassion, and wisdom. We pray that those who speak will express their thoughts clearly. We pray for those who listen, that they will do so with open minds and hearts. We pray that the decisions made here tonight will have a positive impact on our district. These things we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers, for those thoughts. And welcome to everyone on this nice September evening. Before we get started, I want to also thank the art students we have something from Rosemead, we have McCoy Elementary, Creekview High School, art from Creekview, and Blaylock Middle School on display at the front of the boardroom. And I encourage everybody before you leave to come up and take a closer look at these pieces of art. It never ceases to amaze me the level of talent we have in this district. As a district, we dedicate all our efforts and resources to our goal of high expectations for all. The board uses this goal to guide all deliberations, decisions, and actions. You will get to see all deliberations, decisions, and actions of the board in open session, with the exception of some items which may be discussed in a closed session as stipulated in the Texas Government Code, Section 551, commonly known as Open Meetings Law. These items typically deal with personnel matters, consultation with our attorney, and real estate. For the record, board members present are Tara Urbachik, Sally Derrick, Randy Shackman, Guillermo Ramos, Cassandra Hatfield, and myself, Les Black. We constitute a quorum and may conduct business on behalf of the district. Before moving to our next agenda item, I would like to remind you that the board will accept comments from citizens of the district and from district employees. Anyone wishing to speak either as an individual or as a representative of a group may do so during agenda item 3, audience for guests. Please submit your request to do so on one of the forms provided on the table just outside the boardroom door. You may place the completed form in the box provided on the same table or present your completed form to Administrative Assistant Kim Castagnon. When the board addresses agenda item number 3, audience for guests, you will be invited to the podium to speak to the board. Brings us to agenda item number 2, special presentations and recognitions. We'll start with 2A, student recognitions. Ms. Parnell?
Good evening, Dr. Black, Dr. Chapman, and members of the board. Tonight we are excited to recognize Creekview Law Academy students Angela Wynn and Brian Kang. These two outstanding students won the national championship in the moot court team division at the YMCA Youth and Government National Judicial Conference. Described as a debate for lawyers, moot court is a simulated appeals court and requires hours of preparation. This is the first time that a Creekview team has won the conference. But that's not all. In addition to winning as a team, Miss Wynn earned an individual national championship, having been named the tournament's top attorney. Mr. Kang was elected the Chief Justice for the state of Texas for the YMCA Youth and Government 2021-22 competitive season, which means he'll take on the leadership role in that position and in that conference. So we are very proud of both of these students, and tonight I would like to ask Angela Wynn to come forward first. And Brian Kang, congratulations. And next, under announcements, we have three quick things we want to share with you tonight. Tomorrow, the district will continue our equity work with a district-wide professional development day. Dr. Kimberly McLeod will present 3 virtual sessions focused on cultural responsiveness, which supports 2 pillars of the 5 that drive. The next announcement is also tomorrow we will have a district support team leadership team meeting. This is the first one for this year. We expect about 80 directors and leaders from the district to be in attendance, and they are going to hear about district priorities, enrollment, and a quick board recap as well. And then finally, as you'll recall, last month we shared with you about our school supply drive, that it was underway at that time. We're pleased to say that we were able to fill over 3,200 backpacks and school supplies for our students in need. We're very proud to say that every elementary student and middle school student in need received a backpack stuffed with supplies to start the year off right. So at this time, I hope you'll join me in watching a fun video that recaps the special event of us pulling together school supplies.
Though the school year is well underway in CFB ISD, school supplies continue to pour in from our local community partners. And all those supplies are handled with care by our own CFB ISD students who have volunteered their time to sort and organize these precious supplies over at our facility center.
But this is essentially helping all the kids in the elementary, middle schools that don't really have anything. So this is kind of a big deal. Your group yesterday, which was roughly a quarter y'all size, got 200 backpacks stuffed. So pretty much what you'll be doing is pulling from the product here, stuffing it in the backpacks in these little stations, and then someone will just set them right here. We'll collect them. We'll do all the heavy lifting after that.
So I started connecting the community so that I could help children who don't have other people all the time to be at their side. There has been a lot of people in my life that have helped me through as far as mentoring is concerned, and I thought it was important for students to have that same opportunity.
Hi, I'm Callie Tang. And I'm Jasmine Donovan, and we are the chairs for Adopt a School with OxyChem. We were responsible for organizing an event to pack 312 backpacks for the CFB ISD community, and we connected with Andrea with Connecting the Community to organize this event, and we are providing these backpacks to 2 different schools packed full of supplies and things that the kids will need for the school year.
From our partners at Connecting the Community, to first responders, to local community members and businesses who have donated, thank you for helping make this community a better place for those in need. And thank you for helping make CFB ISD an exceptional learning community.
So thank you again to everyone who made this possible, and that concludes our recognitions and announcements.
Thank you, Ms. Parnell. For the record, that was 2A and 2B, student recognitions and district announcements. That brings us to agenda item 2C, the update from PTA. I believe we have Zohair Marmal with us this evening.
Good evening. My name is Zohair Bharmal. I'm the VP of Fundraiser for this year for the CFB Council PTA. I want to thank the following people who have joined our local PTAs through the CFB Champion memberships. First of all, thank you to Cindy Castillo, Zohair Bharmal, Brian Marsh, and Dr. West for joining all of the 36 PTAs. We also have Tracy Smith, Dr. Chapman, and Kaylin Smith. Thank you for being helping hands members by joining some of our struggling PTAs. Finally, we say thank you to Susan Machayo, Neely Clark, and Stacy Homan for joining our feeder school PTAs. We appreciate you supporting so many of our PTAs. School board members, or if any of the rest of you would like to join lots of our PTAs, please check out the link under PTA on the CFB PTA website. Our current PTA membership for this year is already at 2,376. It is a good start, but we would like to see it climb closer to 10,000 members across the district. And what is not in the script is, I think our president Kim Brady and some of us attended the expo at the Gaylord, the Texas PTA, and it was amazing. We learned a lot. And the membership numbers, I'm definitely sure after attending the expo, we will be doing a lot better this year. You all can also help us reach that goal by joining any of our PTAs through joinpta.org. And you can do it on your phone as well right now. Now, some of the membership contests we will be doing this year, and there is something new that we plan to do this year, is a Golden Apple incentive for schools that recruit 100% of their faculty and staff. And then we will award the principal of each of this winning school with a small golden apple statue engraved with the year. And we are excited about letting this become a new tradition in the school district. An incentive that will award our preschool campuses by providing a popsicle and bubbles party for any preschool that recruits 50 or more members. And then various incentives to encourage our membership directors by rewarding our local PTAs with treats and sonic drinks for their board members. Our first council meeting is coming up on Wednesday, September 15th at 6:30 p.m. virtually. We have lots of great info prepared for this meeting, as well as membership celebrations, prizes, and Dr. Chapman will also be speaking. I hope to see all of you there. Please check our website, as well as our Facebook and Twitter pages. And remember, if you haven't joined, then please join at least one PTA today. And then we have reflections coming up, and reflections essentially is a PTA event. There's a lot of scope of encouraging talent. So if you are from any school, principals, please go ahead and encourage the kids to participate in the reflections. And that is our pride. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bamal, for the update. Thank you for all you do, all the hard work you do for PTA, and thanks to all our PTA volunteers and everything you guys are doing to help us make this a better place for kids. We appreciate it. So we'll move now to item 3 on the agenda, which is audience for guests. Ms. Castagnon, are there any in-person requests for this item? We do have one request to speak. So before we begin, I'll remind our audience members of the board's procedures for handling audience for guests. Anyone interested to speak in person during audience for guests must sign in and list the topic they want to discuss. Each speaker will be allowed to speak once during audience for guests. Each speaker will be allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to address the board, dictated by Board Policy BED Local. Because the board wants to hear from as many of you as possible, while also keeping the meeting running efficiently, groups of more than 5 people who want to present a particular viewpoint on a topic should appoint one person to speak on behalf of their group. Again, that speaker's presentation will be limited to 3 minutes. If you speak during audience for guests, either individually or on behalf of a group, please remember that the board cannot deliberate on any subject that is not included on the agenda for this meeting. Last, we ask that you not discuss students who are not your own child. When you arrive at the microphone to speak, the timer will begin. We have a speaker tonight, and it is Tracy Kavanaugh.
I don't do this, so I'm a little nervous. I don't stand in front of people and talk often. Anyway, I went ahead and I put something together as far as masks on our children. All of you I have heard tonight that have got up to speak, you all have hearts for our children, or else you would not be in the position that you're in. And in doing so, I put together some studies that have came out this week, actually, published Wednesday in the Journal of American Medical Association of Pediatrics. They found that the wearing of nose and mouth coverings by children leads to an increase of carbon dioxide levels in both inhaled and exhaled air while wearing a mask. The authors of the group of physicians in Germany also concluded that the findings that children should not be forced to wear face masks. The study tested children from ages 7 to 17 years old, and the results were an average of 13,120 and 13,910 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the air inhaled by children while wearing surgical and filtering masks. It goes on to say that the children under the age of 7 pose an even higher risk of harm from CO2, as they found levels measuring up to 25,000 parts per million. Again, it's important this level was reached after only 3 minutes of children wearing the mask. OSHA has established that permissible, it's PEL, exposure limit for CO2 of 5,000 parts per million averaged over an 8-hour workday. It should not reach over 5,000 as to what you're breathing in a closed environment. In Germany, the Federal Environment Office set their limit not to exceed 2,000 in a closed room. It's not about our health care, it's about control, and it's bad enough to make adults grow accustomed to something new, but it's far worse for children in their developmental ages. They aren't learning a new normal, guys. They have learned to fear those who aren't wearing face masks and fear themselves when they are exposed. They think if I don't have my mask on, I'm going to get something. And that's not true. These things, they're worthless. What makes all of this worse is that it is not being done out of ignorance. It is intentional, and that should make every parent, every grandparent, and every conscientious American citizen
Your time is up,
raving.
Ms. Kavanaugh. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. We're going to take a brief. Would you guys need a break now, or do you think we can move forward? Let's move forward. How about that? If we need a break later, we can do that. So we will move to item number 4, non-action items for discussion. And 4A is Bond Oversight Committee report. And I believe this is Mr. Fisher.
President Black, trustees, Superintendent Chapman. You have our Oversight Committee report before you. A little less involved than it was last year when we were trying to figure out exactly what it was we needed to do and how to do it. Since then, we've changed our name. We've added new guidelines. We have continued to work with Dr. Chapman, and particularly with Mr. Mulroney, who has done an amazing job of overseeing the construction process. So the one thing that we have listed on the report where we could use some guidance, and I think this continues to be a concern of ours, is communication with the community, in particular those who do not have children in the district. And I myself, and I think actually most of the committee members no longer have children who are attending schools. So we make up a majority of the taxpayers in this district. So I think we need to figure out a plan to communicate with them better what is going on with the bond construction. And as we look, I assume, in the next couple of years to perhaps another bond election, we need to let them know what we have done so that they will trust us going forward with additional monies, which will likely be needed to complete all of the things that need to get done. As you are aware, the last bond package was limited. CAC advised that we not have it be larger than necessary in order to keep the tax rate the same. And so that served as a limit. And therefore, this bond package does not do everything that needs to be done, although it certainly is a big step forward. So I think what we need from you is some type of guidance as to exactly, do you want us working on that? Are you all working on that? Is the administration working on that? Do you want us to work with the administration to figure out how we're going to go ahead and get more information out to the community, particularly to the community that does not have children attending the schools? So that is one of the action items, really the only action item that we have asked for direction on from the board. And so if you could just let us know. We have, I think during the meetings, presented several different options to get better communication out to the or to the basically just those who are taxpayers in the district who aren't going to get information from their children or from teachers or from other members of the district staff. So that is what we're looking for direction on. We are happy to help. We are obviously we discuss things on our own, but we are looking forward to direction on, do you want us to take a more organized approach to this, working with you all, or what exactly do you want us to do in that regard? Obviously, you'll need to think about that. I'm sure Dr. Chapman has some ideas. We just need to kind of have an idea of exactly what you want us to do. If that is nothing more than what we've been doing, that's fine. Let us know. If you have other ideas, let us know. So with that, I would say I think things are going very well. We have finally got back to an in-person meeting a couple months ago to see Field and to see Turner. Sorry. Yes, and I think what is going on is amazing. I have been on these bond package committees along the way since the 90s. These are some of the most complete redos that this district has seen since I've been here, so that goes about 30 years. So a lot of them were a little more facial in nature. These are much more structural and learning oriented as to making changes to buildings to go ahead and look at forward as to how we will educate our children going forward. So very impressive, and I think that's what we really need to let our community members know about. I think if they could come and see what I have seen, what we have seen, they would probably be amazed. I do know that the district has a website, but there's a lot of things on the website, and I'm not sure that always gets the attention of people who are on there, who most often are looking for something in particular and not just kind of cruising on by. So that is what we're looking for direction on. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, and if not, then we will wait to hear from you all through Dr. Chapman or whomever to let us know.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Are there questions from board members, comments or questions for Mr. Fisher? Mr. Bocek.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher, and pass along our thanks to the rest of the committee for the service. I appreciate it. And you mentioned some of the changes that happened over the last couple of months and kind of getting into the swing of things since Bond Oversight Committee was new to CFB and kind of getting everything situated. Does the committee feel like you've kind of got your steady footing to be able to do what we want in those kind of reviews with the name changes, the guidelines, some of our schedule tweaks? I mean, has it steadied out to where y'all are comfortable with that?
Yes, we are. I think that has helped to the changes in direction. I think some additional information that we were getting on a more timely basis has helped also. So we are happy at this point going forward with kind of how everything has been set up, and we appreciate the action that was taken in order to get that done. So thank you very much for that.
Ms. Hatfield?
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you again for the service of the committee. As the new board liaison for the BOC, I've been, for my one meeting I've attended, but also being CC'd on all the communications and being aware of the action, the dedication and work that you guys are taking. I really appreciate it. And I think the point that you have brought to us tonight about the importance of making sure that our taxpayers, particularly the ones without children that may not be receiving the communications that us with children are receiving through Parent Square and our various other modes, is really important. And so I really appreciate you bringing that to our attention, and I think you made a good point about who will be the next point of contact, and I think we need to make sure we heed to Dr. Chapman on her next point there. Thank you.
Ms. Derrick.
I'd like to just build off of Ms. Hatfield's comments. Mr. Fisher, I have a question for you, because you made the comments that we need to increase communication with the community, and I'm assuming that was discussed. You said there were some ideas. Were there staff members there present that could take that information back and work on that? Or how was the committee expecting the board to respond to that? Because we definitely want we want the increase in communication for sure.
We have provided that to Dr. Lizzie Asbury in those meetings is what we have done, and said here are some ideas, and so she serves as kind of the coordinator between the district and us, the facilitator. I'm not sure exactly what her official title is, but so we have provided some of that to her during the meetings. So that is primarily who we have raised that with.
Okay, perfect. So we have it documented what the ideas were that the committee recommended.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, excellent.
Yes.
Because I think, y'all are in the thick of this. Y'all are great minds to help us come up with creative ways to increase our reach in the community. Because like you said, y'all are the members that are out in the community, and a lot of y'all don't have kids in the district anymore, and you're our target audience. So you can help us with the ideas. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Fisher, and please send my warmest thanks to the committee.
I will do that. I'm sure a number of them are probably listening in now. So,
Any further questions from board members, comments? I want to echo the thanks that my colleagues are giving to you and to the rest of the committee. Mr. Fisher, thank you for this detailed report and for being here and speaking to the board and addressing the board tonight. And we do appreciate all the work, and we will take to heart the information in the report.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Our next agenda item is 4B, Human Resources Report, and I believe this is Dr. Davis. Welcome back, Dr. Davis.
Thank you. Dr. Black, Dr. Chapman, members of the board, good evening. Tonight I want to give you a brief update on what's going on in the HR department. As we start and you see some of the numbers I'm going to put up, I'd like to first thank the department. Our staff in the department, led by Jason Lewer, Paige Acevedo, and Jerry Martinez, have done a great job this summer of hiring folks. And all of the staff in the department have really picked up the slack and worked really hard to hire folks. So as you can see, this year, with COVID, we did all of our job fairs virtually. I know to continue what Dr. Coleman spoke to you in June on, we did have one in-person job fair at Dallas Baptist, but everything else was virtual going out. And then we hosted 4 job fairs. Within those job fairs, altogether we had 1,682 people registered for the job fairs, and just over 1,100 attended the job fairs. So we had a great turnout in our 4 job fairs over the summer. As you can see, the trend as we got towards August, it did decline in the number of candidates, and that goes to the next few slides where I talk about that supply-demand curve. As the supply of teachers waned, the demand is greater for us. So I took a snapshot of the past 7 years, I believe, of our applications to the district. And as you can see, we did in 17-18 kind of pick up in the number of applications that came into our district. And this is all applications. Last year, 19-20, in 2021, we saw the effects of COVID. But I want you to look at 2021 and 19-20 and how it does decline, because in the next screen, I'm only going to show you September to April, because that last snapshot was September to August. Now this is just September to April. And you can see our numbers are up actually for 2020, 2021. However, right at the time, at the end of April, is when ESSER funds were released, and all of a sudden that supply of teachers started getting spread out amongst a lot of districts, and that's why the demand, if we look back again, overall we were down a little bit, but we did see an increase in the beginning, which was awesome. What we're doing now, we've added in our district 1,091 hiring recommendations that have come in from our buildings. We've hired 767 employees, and this is just from April to the end of August. And we've filled 494 teaching positions. And you're probably wondering, well, what would it look like last year? We had 493 hiring recommendations last year, so we were up double. And we had 388 teacher positions filled. So we filled, and that's consistent with years past, but because we had the ESSER funds, it jumped up from 388 to 494 this year. So it's a very consistent pattern year over year as the number of teaching positions we do fill. Now looking forward, our future is really bright, and the HR department's really excited. We're getting ready to move to a new applicant tracking system that integrates with our Teams product. It's the same vendor, but it's a little more updated and a little more eye-appealing and easier to use for the consumer. Something that we know is this in this tech-savvy era, our young kids want to have a product, and they want to see a district that's going to be up to date and giving them the latest and best as far as technology. And the applicant tracking system that we're going to will help facilitate that. And it's also going to expand our reach to candidates, as part of the application is when we post an application, it's going to go out nationally on what's called K-12 JobSpot. And anybody in the nation, and that's where teachers go to look for jobs around the country. So it's going to expand our reach out of really the state of Texas and start getting into other areas for folks who want to come into Texas. It's going to really simplify that applicant experience for our applicants, and it's going to streamline our hiring processes so that we're more efficient. Customer service and a quick turnaround, something we really pride ourselves on, this is going to even make facilitate a better product for us. Now, as I look forward, things that we're going to be talking about later the next time I get to come up to the podium here is I'm working on recruitment and retention with the department. Working on increased customer service. I don't think we can ever reach the plateau. It's always something we're going to build upon and provide a better product for not only our customers outside the district, but our customers inside the district, our employees. And then I'm really excited to work with Dr. Bailey on the mentoring program. That's a passion of mine, and that's one of the first questions I always get asked when I go out and interview candidates is, what's your mentoring program look like? And I want to be able to really tell the story of what our mentoring program looks like in the district. So that's our future. Yes, teacher mentoring program, yes. I know it was quick. Any questions?
Are there questions for Dr. Davis from the board? I hear none. Dr. Davis, thank you for the report, and thank you for also for recognizing Mr. Lewer and Ms. Acevedo for all the work they did over the summer. I think you see the numbers of positions we filled this summer during the transition is just yeoman's work. So good job to the department, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
But you also have in front of you, you have the number of teacher hires, vacancies, ESSER and non-ESSER that I normally give you in a board memo. And so this one is the latest as of yesterday. It's not going to be in tomorrow's memo because you already got tomorrow's memo today.
All right, that brings us to 4C, which is Restorative Practices Report, and this is Ms. Bailey.
Got to keep it moving. Good evening, Dr. Black, members of the board, and Dr. Chapman. Thank you for this opportunity to update the board on the progress we've made towards becoming a restorative practices district. You've seen this, and as you can see, restorative practices is one of the pillars that support our work this year. Restorative practices are a framework of strategies for building community and managing conflict and tensions by repairing harm and building relationships. My favorite analogy for why restorative practices are needed. If a child doesn't know how to read, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to multiply, we teach. But if a child doesn't know how to behave, how do we answer that? We should be able to answer that question the same as the first two questions. We teach. Just like we teach students academics, and we know learning takes time, and everybody doesn't get it on the first time, we should put forth that same effort into teaching students how to behave. Becoming a restorative district is a journey. We have to diligently work to change the mindsets of administrators, teachers, staff, students, and the community. We have to kind of rewire our thinking about discipline and provide clear expectations for behavior so that students can be successful. So far on this journey, all administrators and behavior resource specialists, which are part of our special ed team, have attended restorative practices training from the International Institute for Restorative Practices. Members of the counseling team, our counselors and positive behavior facilitators, will attend that same training at the end of September. As you can see, we are trying to make sure that we touch everyone and expose everyone to the training that is necessary to support our students. Other progress, we have revised our discipline referral system and have included more restorative options for our administrators. And the newest restorative strategy is the implementation of restorative centers at each secondary campus. The restorative centers are managed by a restorative specialist, and we hired 10 in February. The next video will give you a glimpse into the work that is done by the restorative specialist and the benefits of the restorative center. Now let's see if I can make this work. Okay, what am I supposed to do? I'm trying to get to the info thing. It's supposed to be right here on the page. But the video is not there. Okay, well, let's find it real quickly. Uh-oh. I might press my video. Do I have to log back in?
Hi, my name is Jeanette Inman, and I'm the Restorative Intervention Specialist at Polk Middle School. Restorative Practices empowers students to resolve conflicts on their own and in small groups. The idea is to bring students together to build healthy relationships. The typical response to bad behavior has been punishment. Restorative Practices resolves disciplinary problems in a more constructive way. It promotes positive discipline in school. This process is based on respect, responsibility, and building and repairing relationships. Restorative Practices help students and staff change how they respond to rule violations and misbehavior. The Restorative Center here at Polk provides the opportunity for fair and equitable dialogue and gives students an active participation in the decision-making. This gives the students a sense of belonging that they need. In the Restorative Center, we address the harm that was done, our students' individual needs and feelings, their obligations as a student, and the cause of their behavior. We not only give students a voice, but also encourage them to take responsibility.
Hello, my name is Aisha Green, and I'm the assistant principal here at Tailpass Middle School. Restorative Practices impacts our school culture by addressing the needs of our community, and it allows for healthy relationships to be built between students and educators alike.
The Restorative Center is a place where students can come as they are and know that they will receive supporting healing. Our goal here at Polk is to build a strong community where all can feel that respect and inclusiveness are valued.
Tomorrow, all campus staff will attend Restorative Practices training on our Professional Development Day, and we look forward to the positive benefits of Restorative Practices in CFB. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. Are there questions for Ms. Bailey? Thank you very much. That brings us to agenda item 4D, which is our 2021 Spring Star and Tailpass results. This is Dr. Parker.
Good evening, Dr. Chapman, Dr. Black, and members of the board. This evening we're going to be presenting to you in a collaborative effort between the Assessment and Accountability Department and the Bilingual ESL Department, a joint presentation on the 2021 Spring Star and Tailpass results. here we can see a timeline of the events that have occurred since the beginning of last spring. As you know, this is the first opportunity post-COVID, for us to be able to complete a full administration of Star and Tailpass exams across our district. Testing actually began in February of this year with the Tailpass exam that is administered to our English language learners. There are 4 components of this test, and more information about those particular exams will be presented later. We also began the Star Alt 2 testing in March, and by the time those wrapped up toward the beginning of April, it was time to begin our grade 4 and grade 7 writing Star test, as well as our end of course tests for English 1 and English 2. During the month of May, we saw a large bulk of our state testing occur with each of these exams that are shown here. For the most part, it was for all of our students that were in grades 3 through 8, as well as our students that were enrolled in algebra, biology, and U.S. history, taking their end of course test. Then in July, June and July is when we actually began to see the results for any student who tested during the spring. Now, some of us might actually notice that this year those results came rather late, and for the first time ever, we received our results for the STAR test. We had all of them in by June the 28th. And the reason for this is that the Texas Education Agency had extended the testing window into June. Although we had wrapped up all our tests in May, we still had to wait for the rest of the other districts across the state to complete their testing. By July the 30th, we had received all of our results for the Tailpass exam. Parents in our district are able to access their student scores through techschools.org from Texas Education's website, as well as the Carrollton-Farmers branch website. Then, just this past week, TEA has begun to release our accountability data tables. And this would be the test scores and participation rate, and as well as performance rate, for any student who is in our district on snapshot date, which was October 30th of last year, and they also tested with us during the spring in any one of these exams that are here on the timeline. Looking ahead into October, we anticipate around the middle or late of October, TEA is going to be releasing a comprehensive disaggregated data report to all districts that's going to include the participation and performance rates broken down by students based on their remote versus traditional learning. We're really excited. We haven't seen very much of what those reports are going to look like yet, but we know that that's coming soon, and we're really excited to get that coming ahead. Next, in late November, right around Thanksgiving, TEA will be releasing the 2021 Texas Academic Performance Report. And as you know, that report forms the basis for our district annual report, which will come at a future school board meeting. So let's talk a little bit about the participation rates this year. One of the things to keep in mind is, we did not administer STAR in 2020. So all of our comparisons that we're going to be sharing with you is information from 2019, which is pre-COVID, to 2021, this particular school year. One thing to keep in mind with our participation rates is that in order for a student to take a STAR or a Tailpass exam, the student actually had to be physically present on our campuses to take that test. So as we can see here, the STAR and EOC participation rates, these are shown on the left-hand side here. You can see that in 2019, both the district and the state had a 99% participation rate for all the tests that were administered during the spring of 2019. In this particular year, we can see that Carrollton-Farmers branch participation rate actually outpaced the state, with 93% of students, with 93% of the tests administered taken by students in our district. The second chart here shows our Tailpass participation rate. Once again, that prior to COVID, it was at 100%. You'll see that we were very close to matching the district and the state with participation in those 4 exams. Next, with regard to participation with regard to ethnicity, once again, on the left is our STAR. We can see that Carrollton-Farmers branch, the Hispanic students that were taking the test, kind of closely resembles those students in the state, but our other subgroups are quite different. With regard to Tailpass, we can see that, remember, Tailpass is given for our English language learners. A large majority of those students are Hispanic in our district as well as across the state, but you can see other students are also participating. Next is taking a look at the students that are served by the free and reduced program, identified as students who are economically disadvantaged. With regard to the STAR, you can see that 10 percentage point more students in Carrollton-Farmers branch are served by a free and reduced program that actually took the STAR test back in the spring. With regard to Tailpass, it was 81 to 83, very, very comparable with the state. This concludes this portion of the presentation. I'm now going to turn it over to the directors of the bilingual ESL programs, Olivia Perez and Carolina Christensen.
What do we need to know about Tailpass 2021? Tailpass is the Texas English Language Proficiency Assessment System. This is a federally required assessment that measures the annual progress that our English learners are making in their academic English. All of our English learners, K-12, take this assessment, including those whose parents have denied bilingual ESL services. Students are measured their progress in speaking, writing, reading, and listening, and then they receive a rating that ranges from beginner to advanced high in each of these 4 language skills, and then a composite rating, which is an average of those 4 skills.
As we look at our Tailpass data, there are areas that are worth noting. The first one is the level of proficiency of our students. In kinder through 2nd grade, 40% of our students receive a score of advanced or advanced high, which means that their English is developed almost like a native English speaker. In 3rd through 12th grade, we see an increase in that percentage to 66%, which is higher than reported by the state and the region. Our English learners are learning English. Tailpass also measures growth over time and reports what percentage of students have grown 1 or more proficiency levels. In order to have a growth measure, students need to have a measure in the previous year. "2019 was the 2nd year of the new Tailpass design. The new design includes online components for listening and speaking, as well as reading. 2020 Tailpass assessment was interrupted due to COVID, so 2021 offers more reliable data. We have maintained or made progress in listening and reading compared to pre-COVID scores, but we lost some ground in the speaking portion of the test. Therefore, we were able to maintain the same composite or average score and mitigate the limitations to oral language development during restrictions due to COVID. During COVID, spring of 2020, many of our students were unable to finish their test, their Tailpass assessment. Therefore, only a fraction of our students, about 800 of them, had growth measures compared to more than 5,000 in 2019. Even though we have a relatively small sample, our students in 3rd through 12th grade made strong gains in 2021, greater than the state with 31% and the region with 31%. We had 40. Our little ones and our most vulnerable students when it comes to language acquisition lost a little bit of ground compared to 2019. But the percentage of students making at least 1 year's growth is aligned with the state and the region.
Based on our performance, some of our actions that we took in the district were gearing our professional development towards the understanding and developing students' language skills in the classroom. Curriculum was specifically designed to develop language skills, especially oracy, which will in turn, we'll see the results on our future Tailpass results. Our district common formative assessments are put in place to monitor the development of the language skills throughout the year.
It's my honor to share with you this evening an overview analysis of the 2021 Star EOC results. John Steinbeck said, "To find where you're going, you must know where you are." And knowing where our students were after the shift to virtual learning was one of the driving forces behind our effort to safely administer the Star this last year. As Dr. Parker already mentioned, our attendance rates exceeded our expectations, and we would like to acknowledge and thank our students and our parents for allowing us this opportunity to gain a better knowledge of where our students are and how we can help them. We would also like to acknowledge the efforts of our campus administrators and testing coordinators, as well as our teachers, who were amazing with their ability to adapt quickly and ensure that all of our students were both safe and successful. Before we look at the data, we have a few points that we feel like are relevant to this year's scores. In response to House Bill 3906, in 2019, our district developed a 3-year transition plan to online testing. But in light of our accelerated progress around virtual learning, we accelerated our plan, and last year our students took the Star and EOC online, with the exception of 4th grade writing. While initial drops are common during the first year of online testing, we do anticipate a rebound as students gain experience and practice on the test. Please note that paper tests are available. Next, students were required to test in person, and for many of our remote learners, this was probably their first time back on our campuses. Finally, STAR was canceled on April the 6th due to technical issues. For CFE, this affected our 7th grade writing as well as English 1. With this information in mind, let's take a look at our reading scores first. The assessments are labeled at the bottom. The columns to the left of each pairing represent CFE, and the columns to the right represent the state. The yellow boxes represent the percentage of scores at the approaches level, green at meets, and blue at masters. The number at the top indicates the total percentage of scores which met the passing standard. Across the assessments, the state's performance is slightly higher than CFB's. In looking at this gap between the district and the state, know that from 3rd grade through English 2, the gap tends to increase with one notable exception, 8th grade reading. This data breakdown, next, when focusing on the yellow boxes, notice that CFB has an equal or a higher percentage of scores at the approaches grade level. But in the blue boxes, the state tends to have a higher percentage of scores at the master's level. This data breakdown illustrates the importance of growing our highest performing scholars with the same tenacity as our low performing scholars. Next, let's look at math. From our math data tracking last year, we knew that the shift to virtual learning was negatively impacting student outcomes, especially in math. And while we still have a long ways to go and work to do, the math STAR scores were more encouraging than what we had initially braced ourselves for. Similar to reading, this data suggests that while CFB exceeds the state in percentage of students it approaches, an area of growth continues to center around increasing the percentage of scores in meets and masters. You may also notice on this view that the CFB's 7th grade data is lower than the state. It's worth noting here that our middle school campuses have a strong focus on challenging students to take advanced math courses. And this pathway traditionally starts in the 7th grade. A student taking advanced math in the 7th grade learns the 8th grade curriculum and takes the 8th grade STAR. So, when campuses encourage more students to take advanced math courses than the state, then the gap in the performance increases proportionally. If we look at our 8th grade data, this gap does not persist, which suggests that the benefit to each individual student outweighs concerns when we look at the performance of 7th grade in isolation. Finally, let's take a look at science and social studies. On this chart, science is on the left and social studies is on the right. Notice that the 8th grade science and U.S. history are the closest to the overall state average. Similar to reading and math, the shift to increasing percentage of scores at meets and masters continues as an area of focus. So we've looked at the scores from the past. Let's look a little bit at the future of Star and EOC. In 2021-22, the state will eliminate the standalone writing assessment for grade 4 and 7, and a writing component will be added to reading STAR tests in grades 3 through 8. Also, CFB will continue with online testing. In 22-23, the entire state is planning to transition to online testing, and STAR and EOC tests can be no more than 75% multiple choice. As our Steinbeck quote reminded us, now that we have a better idea of where we're going, let's take a brief look at some of the ways that we're getting there, and a few of the key strategies that we're working on. This graphic is our 5 that drive, and at the base of the 5 that drive is our professional learning communities. This summer, district and campus leaders attended PLC training through Solution Tree, and now is a great time for us to continue our focus on teacher collaboration, planning, and analysis. Our goal of high-quality Tier 1 instruction is supported by 5 guiding principles, and one of those pillars is data-driven. This summer, our district and campus leaders attended data-driven instruction training. Along with deepening our understanding of how to use data to guide Tier 1 instruction, we also worked on identifying essential standards. These strategies are just a few of the examples of the many strategies that we believe will help us achieve our mission of empowering scholars to acquire lifelong skills and values that prepare them to compete in the world marketplace. And we thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. Board members, do you have questions for any of the team here? Ms. Christensen, Ms. Perez for Tailpass, or Dr. Julian, Dr. Parker on STAR or EOC? Mr. Ramos.
I've got a couple questions about the Tailpass. I mean, being an English language learner myself, I'm just having a hard time understanding that. So I was wondering if you could explain chart number 7 a little bit more in detail so I can have a better grasp of it.
Sure. This one? So the state awards a different, a rating. The students can get beginning, intermediate, advanced, or advanced high. Being advanced high, a child that speaks with the same ability as a native language English speaker. So when we have our students in beginning, it's those children that still have very little language to express themselves. And then when we think about an intermediate learner, is a student that has a small bank of about 3,000 words in English to communicate. And it's usually well-rehearsed sentences, and they have the social language, but they are starting to have that grasp of the academic language. When we move to advanced, those students have the ability to communicate in a social setting effectively. They have a bank of about 5,000 words, and they can they start using complex sentences. And they can understand on-level texts when they read with few accommodations. When we look at advanced high, is the child that speaks in the same way and skill as an English native speaker. So when the child is assessed in 4 domains. Our little ones, kinder and first, is a rubric that the teacher uses to observe the child. When we assess our 2nd to 12th graders, they take 3 of the assessments on the computer. They take the listening and speaking on the computer, which is like a little small passage, and they respond questions in the computer using the microphone. And then they take the reading also on the computer. It's an online test. And what they do is they use a scale to assess the students depending on their answers. And with that scale, they form a score. So when we have a beginning student, they get a score of 1 for each domain. So you average the 4 scores and you get a 1. If you're an intermediate student, you get a 2 for each one of the domains, and you average them and you get a 2. But sometimes kids have a 3 in listening but a 2 in speaking, because the productive language comes later in life. So the receptive language is easier, especially if you're a child. And then the state does an average with that. That's why the 2.3 looks like an odd number. It means that they're not an intermediate, which will be a 2, but they're not advanced yet as an average. But if you see in the 3rd through 12, they're closer to the advanced than they are to the intermediate. So that's kind of like the measure. And we are exactly at the same, we have exactly the same scores as the state for those 2 clusters. 2.3 for K through 2nd, and 3rd through 12 we have 2.8 as well. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. And then I've got another follow-up question on that then. Do we have a way to measure students that are, say, in kindergarten and then the next year in 1st, the next year in 2nd, that are progressing from beginning, then to intermediate, then to advanced, and then to advanced high? Because I'm sure that's the goal, is to get them to advanced high. Do we have some sort of a metric to measure that?
Yes, so we have 2 measures. We have our own measure, which we follow the kids so we know what accommodations and support to give them. And also the state of Texas does it for us. So we have both. Just keep in mind that acquiring a language to that level of proficiency takes between 5 to 7 years. So you're going to have some students that are going to stay a little longer in between advanced and advanced high, because that's when your social language is so proficient that you think, oh, this child speaks English perfectly, but they still need support in their academic English. And that's where we work a lot. Olivia and I work a lot in staff and professional development to support that jump. Then the other thing to think about is that Texas rates us in progress measure. So if you look at that last number, the 38%, is those kids that had a Tailpass score in 2020 and had a Tailpass score in 2021. They saw, okay, did they make at least a year's worth of progress? And then they averaged that and gave us a percentage. So 38% of our students in K through 2nd made a year's worth of progress between 2020 and 2021. Does it make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, we keep track of that because that measure also is included in our accountability report.
Ms. Derrick.
Ms. Christensen, another question for you. First is just for clarification. Do students take both Tailpass and the Star?
Yes, ma'am.
Those students do take both. Okay. Just a little bit of clarification on the slide right before that one.
That one?
Let me see. Hold on, I lost my place. It had the numbers.
The next one?
Page 8. That one, yes. So in looking at the 3rd through 12th grade numbers in 21, that's a significant decrease. Do we have any explanation of that when our Star participation rates were really good, considering it was a pandemic year, but it looks like 1,300 kids less took, 1,213, took the Tailpass?
So one thing to consider is that if we look at our participation rate, for a Tailpass to be rated, for a student taking Tailpass to be rated, they have to take all 4 pieces. So the 2 pieces that are on the computer, you schedule, the kid comes and they take it in the computer. But you also have to collect 5 writing samples. And the writing samples have to be across all domains. So you have to have a narrative in past tense, you have to have 2 or 3 samples in content, could be biology, social studies, math, and then they have to take one that is related to language arts. And those samples are rated by an ESL teacher. and they give a grade for the kids. So what happens is that sometimes we have the students, but we don't have all the pieces. So one of the things that happened is that 72% of our kids completed Tailpass last year. So we have a high participation, but not of all the components. So it was hard to get a good participation, get a strong participation because of having so many pieces. So when you take the STAR test, you come that day, you take the test, and you leave. But for Tailpass, you come one day, you take the reading. You come 2 days later, you take the listening and speaking, and then your teacher has to find the 5 writing samples from your classwork. So that's the challenge of it. So in elementary, it's rather easy because the kids have 1 or 2 teachers. But when we're talking about a 11th grader, it's a challenge. So we have that situation with our participation in our scores.
That was a really good explanation. Thank you.
Thank you.
It also cut into, if we had so many remote learners, some of them were not coming into the building or being able to find rides or being able to make all the accommodations. So that also shows why we had so fewer testing.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the board? Mr. Ramos.
It's regards to the online testing. So moving forward, it will always be online testing, it appears like. So are we doing different things now to move forward to make sure that, we're getting past the learning curve that may be associated with the lower test scores so that we can get to that point?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're really focused on building, for example, our district formative assessments as well as our interim assessments in Eduphoria Aware, which is an online testing platform. And we've been doing a lot of training throughout, really last year and this year, really building the student skills. And one of the great things about that program, it does mirror the online STAR platform, so students get the exact same look on that test.
Mr. Shackman.
As we move to online, does Tailpass stay with those writing components? So there's still going to be that process that doesn't go online?
Yes, the complexity of the rubric for Tailpass writing, I don't think allows the state to grade that many samples, considering that the state of Texas has about 1 million language learners. So, 30% of our population is language learners. So it's a lot of reading and rating. So we continue to use that rating rubric for our students. It's interesting because we think that it will be subjective, but actually we have to really train the teachers to do, they have to take an online training to write the samples. And also we work with the teachers so they're fair in their assessment of this.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. And then as we're moving with that process, it will continue to reflect the online 100% with STAR and the online components then just in Tailpass. Okay, thanks.
I want to add something that the state as a whole has struggled with the listening and speaking portion, and we're performing better than the state in those areas.
Any further questions from board members? Okay. Ms. Christensen, Ms. Perez, Dr. Julian, Dr. Parker, thank you so much. That brings us to item 4E, our construction update. Mr. Mulrooney.
Good evening, Dr. Black, members of the board, and Dr. Chapman. Thank you for this opportunity to give a quick construction update. We have a lot of projects going on, and so we'll start off with the athletic fields. Phase 2, we were at Kelly at Smith and at Turner High School. There we've dug down the baseball fields and we've brought them back on, and we're going to be doing that rock top layer and then be putting that artificial turf field on top of that. On the right there, it's a little blurred, but you can see the new dugouts at Kelly Field, so they'll bring that up to par to match what we did at Ranch View. So all 4 of our high schools now will have comparable wraparound bleachers, block dugouts, all kind of having that same level of standard. On the softball, which we did have to go through some planning and permitting on, those started a little bit behind the baseball fields, but they are on schedule to be completed by December ready for the spring season. So we are on schedule and on budget with those projects. Overlooking at the bond work, in front of you is the similar report to the BOC sees at their bi-monthly meeting, and this gives us just a quick overview of the projects that we have in the hopper. You can see we're crossing about that 50% mark with about $240 million under contract and about $100 million of work paid for. So we're really moving fast now. We've got another summer. You can see on the bottom right our cash flow bubble there. You'll see during the school year we kind of slow down a little bit. Then that last hump is next summer. And by the time we clear August of next year, that's the majority of our large work all wrapped up. So the team's pedal to the metal for the next couple of months as we see all the projects through. Going quickly through those projects in active construction, we have Vivian Field that's fully open and we're punching out those classrooms. We had that opportunity to switch the band hall and the weight room there, so that project will continue through December, but the majority of the school is open. We've got a couple of punch list items. The one thing that we did find at Vivian Field that was high impact, anything that we ordered after the 4th of July has basically fallen into the black hole of construction materials. Some of it's available, some of it's locked up in customs, some of it's on a boat, some of it's on a truck. The team has done an excellent job pivoting and adjusting to it, but it's certainly a very, very challenging time. Some of the projects that we have gotten started and open next year, we've been able to make more adjustments to, but Vivian Field really took the hardest hit. So when you go over to that project, you'll see the learning stair and some of the storefront coming in. We're working closely with the campus to keep them operational, but they certainly took a hit this summer with all those delays. Over at Turner, again, this is that great steel canopy that will create that Pride Lands courtyard, where we'll have those CTE services with floral, vet med, welding, art, auto shop, all opening up into this incredible pedestrian mall. We can't get the aluminum to wrap the steel. All of that aluminum is custom ordered that goes on there. It'll be a nice gray color. We're just working with the manufacturers to get the materials themselves. So again, we have all the structure in, the concrete's in, we're wrapping up, but we just can't finish it without those materials. So we'll be working with those suppliers to get everything wrapped up by the end of the year, but we are on those delays. Yes, sir, absolutely. And we had originally spoken about a ribbon cutting September 23rd, and like I said, that's when we started receiving. At that point, it was still 16 weeks, and then the manufacturers just started saying, it'll arrive when it arrives. I'm like, we schedule our crews on the same basis, or what do we do? So we are looking at a November-ish meeting, but we won't announce that until we have materials in hand and it's completed those installs. Over at Sheffield, Jackson Construction has done an excellent job there. They was right through the year, they were securing materials, so we've got warehouses and courtyards full of materials to keep going. Our biggest challenge there is our permitting process. Unfortunately, the city of Dallas had a COVID outbreak and delayed all water inspections for 3 weeks. So we took a number in the queue and we're waiting because we need to get those fire hydrants accepted before we can go vertical with steel. So Jackson's doing everything that they can that isn't quite in the vertical realm to do that. The city's trying, they're working with us. We are first in line to get those freed up, but that's just more challenges that we have there. So there you'll see the foundations are dropping in, everything under the ground, as well as retaining walls, site improvements, everything that they can do to stay busy on that site as well. Again, we are on schedule to open that building in July of 2022. So it's going to be a long 9 months, not abnormal for an elementary school. And the big thing there is we have our materials. We have our AC units, we have our steel ordered. Jackson didn't wait or hesitate to move on that. So really big thank you to them. For our 21 structured projects, Newman Smith, obviously we opened up that first area on that project, which is those four classroom quads right here in the middle. against the library. The crew is working over in this upper area, which will become the construction P-Tech program. Behind the wall, it looks like that. You can see we're opening up a lot of space. North Star, sorry, too many True North Star folks. North Star is our general contractor on this project, and they've really done an exceptional job opening up a 1974 building. This building was very similar to Perry in the fact that it had been stitched and added on lots of infill type projects. They cut right through, which meant new structure, new systems, finding lots of things that were built in the 70s in some very peculiar ways, making those repairs. They've done a great job working for us in that. Over at Perry, we've gotten a lot of progress on that. Just a quick recap of the project. Remember, we're taking out a majority of this middle area right here with that new entry with that big red canopy that goes in, as well as opening up all these classrooms so that we create these villages around the preserved historical auditorium and classrooms. Looking inside, you can start to see what we've opened up. So this is in that 1936 section, opening up all those walls, finding nothing too interesting, but we found some old wood paneling that we shared on social media. Lots of old systems. I think one room had 3 different lighting systems in it, and 2 different ceiling types. So cleaning a lot of that stuff up. We're not just going to cover up those surfaces as we go. We want to clean it up so that whoever gets the next renovation in 25 years or whatever it is realizes that we did it right this time around. So Core Construction is doing a great job on that, as well as getting into those courtyards, which will get new drainage so that they drain properly, as well as some canopy and shade. If you've been over, you'll see that we used what used to be the karate building or the old shop building is actually the temporary admin during construction. So that's the new admin head as you come in, and then you go into the portables behind that. Just a few photos where this one in the bottom right is where they actually used the old wood shop and turned it into the break room. So it has all the sinks and outlets and everything, so they're able to make it into a really great break room for everybody, as well as putting down new carpet and paint. So while it was a pretty shabby old building, we've really cleaned it up because it is a year, and that's a long time, and that's our front door, even if it's temporary, and so we managed to make those improvements. One of the exciting things that happened was some of those portables were delayed during the summer, and so we opened up using the summer classrooms in the building. We've been able to get the temporary certificate of occupancy on those buildings, and those will be moved over this weekend. So please think out for the custodians and the construction crews who are going to be moving 20 classrooms worth of stuff over to these new buildings and opening those classrooms up. So that will get all the kids out of the building and allow us to make those major cuts to the system. To get a quick look at those portables, just to remind everybody, they are really nice portables. This is actually a hallway because you'll see several of the portables are actually multiple classrooms, so that's a look inside. Almost looks as nice as a school. Other things that we heard was that each portable classroom actually has its own AC unit. So some folks get a little bit more control on some of those luxuries while they're in the portable. So portables suck, but at least we have nice furniture and you have control over the air. Looking over at the elementary school packages, which completed this summer, remember that the 3 lights, Las Colinas, Good, and La Villita, got the technology upgrades, as well as the Macorta-esque projects at River Chase, Thompson, Blanton, and Freeman. We're still going to have some presence there. Freeman has got some drainage issues that we need to deal with, as well as some canopies outside at Good, and a few things like that. But fundamentally, we're closed on these projects. They are substantially complete and punched. Quick look at the 4 libraries. If we remember, the Macorta Library got the big learning tree. So not to be outdone this summer, we did Thompson, Freeman, River Chase, and Blanton. Sometimes themed around their school mascot, like River Chase has the Eagles, but Blanton is the Bulldogs, so we built a rocket ship because those are just fun and good for libraries. Marquee projects continue. I have updated the delivery date on this to August of 2022. We were looking at a December delivery. The screens are giving us some hassles. We also did have to go to a planning and permitting meeting with Farmers Branch. We were asking the sign to be 6'8", 8 inches, and their restriction was 6 foot, plus they wanted it to be the digital display to be quite substantially smaller. We met with them, explained the use of how important this is to our community and communicating all that information, not just to parents that go to have kids at the school, but also to everybody who drives by our schools so that they know what's going on. The town understood why we needed it and granted our variance to that sign. So we were able to keep the same marquee at all the elementaries in this package as the goal was set in the 2018 bond. Over at Ranchview and Creekview, those projects are well underway. Ranchview got its systems upgrade, and we'll be working in the IT department and the culinary arts department for them. Creekview has still got a long way to go. That was an old 4-pipe chiller system. And to give you an idea, Creekview used twice the amount of electricity as any of our other high schools, Turner included, because of that old 4-pipe system. And that means gutting out and changing over an entire HVAC system. So we did the 3rd floor, which could go to rooftop units, but the 2nd and 1st floor is going to go to what they call a VRF system. Very efficient, and it gives lots of control to each of the individual spaces. So you get that, we've used it in a number of different places. That's going to be very disruptive this coming summer. So we're continuing to do construction. This is the JRTC area that just opened up. Great shout out to that department. The CMR folks are excited to host this now at Creekview, and we have a new space to host that as well. This is the HVAC turnover that I was talking about. We're working about 4 or 6 classrooms at a time, taking them down, gutting it, taking out that old system, starting to bring in that new system. So that will be disruptive for Creekview over the year, and then particularly going into the summer. Because that's active construction, we still got to design a whole lot of work for the next summer, because we've got that last bubble to go. So last package here is the 2022 projects. There's 6 elementaries in this package. That would be Davis, Kent, McCamey, Rainwater, Stark, and Blair. Now remember, this is where we're getting into these very small packages. It's $1.8 million, lots of finishes, some furniture, technology, those types of things. We're not talking about substantial changes at this point. But we are designing it and meeting with those campuses, figuring out how to prioritize those needs for those folks and where to spend those dollars. Because everything in the bond, we never spend a dollar till we know where that dollar goes. So that's a lot of meetings that we've been spending with these guys. Over on the middle schools, same type of deal. Blaylock, Bush, Long, and Polk. Again, we're looking $25 million across the board for all 4 schools. Polk needs new roof, new HVAC. Blaylock gets some HVAC and a small amount of roof. Bush gets roof and HVAC. So a lot of system upgrades. Remember those ugly bond aspects, but we'll do our best to find those moments that we can really invest in the campus, maybe around the libraries, around their STEM rooms, opportunities like that. We're deep in the design, and we'll be bringing more forward as we go into next year. Last but not least is our stadium project. Met closely with the BOC and got a lot of guidance, and we heard very clearly that it was visitor side seating. That was the focus of this package. It was intended in the 2018 bond, and that's where we put our resources. So this is a view of adding new concrete bleachers on the visitor side, exactly as it was described in the 2018 bond, at a budget there of about $6.1 million. This is going to be some challenging soils. We've got our geotech back, and we're looking at 60 foot deep to hit bedrock, if not 75. So deep soils there. Concrete's expensive, so the contractor and VLK are working on some multiple designs, what to do with precast concrete, what to do with cast in place. Those markets are changing all the time on us as well, so we're running all the possible scenarios to ensure that we get the absolute best value for the district. So those will be some of our challenges coming forward, but we'll see that project aim to get that started at the end of football season in November and be ready again for next year.
Thank you, Mr. Mulrooney. Are there questions for Mr. Mulrooney from board members? I guess you're off the hook, Mr. Mulrooney. Thank you for that presentation. We appreciate it. Board members, can we proceed on to consent agenda, or do we need a break? I'm seeing heads nodding, so let's move to agenda item 5, consent agenda. The consent agenda is a mechanism that the board uses to approve a number of routine items together with a single vote. In compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, the public notice for this meeting includes the list of all consent agenda items. The board has been provided ample information about these items in advance. Prior to any action taken on the consent agenda, board members may request withdrawal of individual items for clarification or discussion. Board members, are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda at this time? Okay, hearing none and seeing none. Board members, do I have a motion regarding the consent agenda? Ms. Urbacek.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion from Ms. Urbacek. Do I have a second? I have a second from Ms. Derrick. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. See 6 hands up. All those opposed? By a vote of 6 in favor and 0 opposed, the motion carries. That brings us to agenda item 6, items for discussion and/or action. There were no items removed from the consent agenda that need to be addressed at this time, so we'll skip item 6A. We'll go to item 6B, which is considering approving board resolution for creation of pandemic leave allotment. Dr. Chapman?
Yes, this has been a conversation that we've had for several months now. You know, the Board of Trustees approved this leave last year. We had the federal piece, and when the federal piece went away in December, the Board of Trustees was gracious enough to allow us to use the sick leave. So at this time, I'm going to have Mr. Mersch talk a little more deeper into why we need it and why we need to bring this back.
Since July 1st of 2020.
So toward the end of last year, we were cautiously optimistic that we would return to some degree of normalcy. The Delta variant showed up and changed all that. We've had to re-implement several of the protocols, the COVID protocols. And as like Dr. Chapman said, last year you were so gracious to give employees the benefit of using the sick leave bank so they would not have to use all their personal leave when they were forced to quarantine and not allowed to come to work. As of July 1st of 2021, we've had 148 employees that have had to quarantine. So what we're asking you tonight is to reinstate the sick leave benefit so that employees can take advantage of that and not exhaust their personal leave. The process will be the same as was used last year. And the criteria will consist of if an individual is confirmed positive, if they're a close contact of a confirmed positive case, if the child is confirmed positive and the parent needs to provide child care, and if the child is a close contact of a confirmed positive case and the parent is needed to provide child care. We currently have over 25,000 days in the sick leave bank, so it's not going to be a problem. And you know the FFCRA ended last year at the end of December, and then in January through May, we were using the sick leave benefit, and that equated to 1,450 days. So it is recommended that the board approve the resolution as presented. Yes, sir. And it will be retroactive, so all 148 employees would receive the benefit if approved tonight.
Before I ask for a motion on this, are there any board members that have questions for Mr. Mersch? Mr. Derrick?
Mr. Mersch, can you just clarify for us the use of those days? Do they have to use so many of their own personal days before they can then tap into the sick bank, or can they immediately go to the sick bank hours?
They can immediately go. They will fill out a form. It goes to HR. They confirm the information. That information is then conveyed back to the individual, and they do not have to use the personal leave prior to the COVID sick leave bank benefit.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions? So do I have a motion regarding this item? And reminder, if you make a motion, you must read this resolution when making the motion. I think everyone has a copy. Ms. Herbacek.
I move that we approve the resolution for creation of pandemic leave allotment, and the resolution reads, whereas the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic continues to affect school operations as it spreads across Texas and the world, and whereas through circumstances beyond their control, certain district employees may be forced to miss work days due to required isolation after contracting the COVID-19 virus, and whereas the board recognizes that the unique
Circumstances created by the COVID-19 pandemic may place an unexpected financial burden on employees, and whereas the board finds a public purpose will be served by granting additional paid sick leave to those employees who contract COVID-19 during the 2021-2022 school year by demonstrating support of its employees, enhancing employee morale, supporting the retention of employees, and protecting the health of employees. Now therefore it be resolved by the board that the findings and recitals outlined above are found to be true and correct and are hereby approved and adopted, and the board finds that a public purpose and benefit to Carrollton-Farmers Branch ISD is served by granting additional paid sick leave to employees who are forced to miss work days as a result of a positive COVID-19 test between July 1st, 2021 and June 30th, 2022. The board finds that this is necessary and appropriate in the conduct of the public schools as provided by Texas Education Code 45.105C, and the board grants the superintendent specific authorization to temporarily amend or modify both the qualifying criteria and the process associated with the sick leave bank guidelines to permit for the use of this leave for those employees who are forced to miss work days as a result of a positive COVID-19 test between July 1st, 2021 and June 30th, 2022, and the board hereby suspends the operation of board policies DEA local and DEC local only to the extent necessary to effect the purposes of this resolution, and this resolution shall automatically expire on June 30th, 2022, unless extended by action of the board, and the board hereby authorizes the superintendent to take whatever steps reasonably necessary to fulfill the purposes of this resolution, including the creation of additional requirements or procedures for an employee to request this leave and making determinations regarding employee eligibility for this leave. This resolution will be adopted by the vote of the majority of members of the Board of Trustees of the Carrollton-Farmers Branch ISD present and voting at an open meeting of the board on the second day of September 2021, at which quorum was present.
Thank you, Ms. Urbacek. We have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second from Ms. Derrick. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? None. By a vote of 6 in favor and 0 opposed, the motion carries. The board will now move on to agenda item 7, comments from board members regarding posted agenda items. Board members, do any of you have comments you wish to make at this time related to the posted agenda? Mr. Shackman.
On the agenda, it gives the day's date, and today's date happens to be Creekview versus Newman Smith. And at halftime, it's 28-17. I just got the score. Creekview is ahead.
Creekview leading 28-17. So we are almost to adjournment, and people might be able to get out and catch the second half to Standridge. So thank you for the update. So we will move on to, if no one else has any comments about anything on the agenda tonight. Okay, we'll move to adjournment. We've reached the end of our agenda, and we are adjourned at 8:39.